So, are all psychics fake? Well, probably. Thanks for watching, everyone. Smash like.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister?
Anyway, let's take a deep dive on the subject by looking at what it takes to become a psychic, some wacky scandals and some clear-cut evidence. Obviously not from psychics because there is literally none to support it. You never know, I may even be able to spell psychic first time by the end of this script. Anyway, if you enjoy listening to my words, please smash like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Cheers. Well, if you slap this into Google, you'll get some interesting results, and a lot of it costs money, surprisingly. Who would have thought a sector known for being a scam is scamming? Some of these courses do offer some pretty helpful things though, so let's not write them off straight away. Like heal your chakra so you have more energy and can think more clearly, and contact your spirit guides for advice, and learn to contact spirit guides and angels to do psychic readings on others. I can't even begin to unpack those two sentences. What even is a chakra? Sounds like a type of bird. The course does go on to say you will be able to clear any blockages to contacting higher beings, but I thought that's why we have Vic's Rub. So in this first hurdle, you can start to see a trend. All of you out there thinking one is born with the mystical ability of being a psychic, which in fact everyone has the capability, and all for the sweet price of £27 or around $30. The thing I always find interesting around these courses and teachers is, do they actually believe what they sell, or do they know it's all BS? Well, I tend to go 50-50 on this. 50% are so deluded that they genuinely believe they do possess spiritual powers. On the other 50%, I would say they do know it's a scam, but both sides will agree on one thing. The skill required to be a psychic are skills that need to be worked on to become good at everything that goes along with being a psychic. From cold readings to tarot cards to fortune telling, they all require a form of showmanship and the learning of some pretty important skills to get good. Being a psychic is nothing more than just getting what is called hits and misses. So let's start with the most common type of psychic, the medium. These are the types you see plastered all over primetime TV. This is your now deceased Sylvia Browne, John Edward and Sally Morgan, all of which are considered to be at the top of their fields in what they do, but all of them have been either debunked or called out plenty of times before. So why don't they get cancelled or have little to no repercussions? Well, to be honest, it's pretty simple maths. The people who believe in psychics, or the words that they say to them, will always believe in them. Believing in psychic abilities is a choice, and as soon as you choose to step away from that choice, you'll be amazed by how quickly you can see through the BS that these people string together. So how do you become a medium? There are plenty of different weapons in the tool belt of mediums, but the main objective is information gathering. The way in which they do this is cold reading, warm reading, Barnum statements, and just straight up research. So let's break down cold reading. Cold reading is where you'll be looking at the subject's body language as you throw out generalized statements to make sure you're going in the right direction. For instance, if I were to say, I'm sensing there is an issue with money within the family, which is always a common conversation with psychics, as usually when a parent passes away, there is always a question on the inheritance and will usually have a good hit rate. From then on, you'll be able to gauge the reaction from the subject and fish for more information. This could be done by saying, I can feel this strain is with a sibling or someone equally close. So within two fairly obvious questions, we've established two hits, which will give us wiggle room for a possible miss on a more detailed statement. From here, you can go into detail on dates or months, potentially by saying something like, I'm being told that November 2022 was a big month for you. This is a calculated risk question. I said November as we are currently in January 2023, so just 2 months prior to the conversation. It is enough time for the funeral to be completed and enough time for monetary conversations to happen, therefore putting the date of the death at around November. If the answer is yes, then we have another hit. You can hone in on the specifics from there. If it is a miss, then you have to allow the subject to create their own story with the words you have given them. By now, the client would have 100% belief on what you're pitching. So moving on to what's known as warm reading. This is essentially knowing your audience or subject prior to the reading. This can be anything from researching on social media to a whole deep dive, but the most common for the largest of performance is to allow the audience to write out little cards before the show, or even have staff loiter around receptions to eavesdrop on conversations, and then feedback the information to the medium while performing. If you don't believe me, then let me take you back to Peter Popoff, an incredibly famous televangelist, which admittedly wasn't a medium but a performer that spoke to God apparently, was exposed by the famous James Randi by sitting in on one of his shows with a camera and a radio interceptor, and caught the whole charade on tape. Peter Popoff was heard being fed information about the audience from these prayer cards that had been given out during the start of the show.
I suspected that Popoff's revelations were other than divine. The radio scanner we brought to the hall picked up a decidedly worldly source.
Hello, Petey. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble.
Is it
Popoff was being prompted by his wife through a wireless earpiece.
John?
Dearly Johnson.
She'd gotten her information from prayer cards filled out by the faithful before the show began.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister? Oh, 3 years. 3 years.
She lives at 1627 10th Street.
1627 10th Street? Is that right?
That's right.
She has arthritis all over.
Burning this arthritis right out of your body. Take a few steps just to make the devil mad. Hallelujah.
James Randi showed the footage on The Tonight Show, which led to the Peters bankruptcy just 6 months after. He returned to TV after 10 years seemingly learning nothing. There was a pretty famous excerpt from Sally Morgan when she was doing a reading for Richard Bacon's mum live on air when she slipped up. She knew the name of Richard's mum before it was even said, so Richard calls her out, which is quite frankly a shambolic reading. Take a peek.
Hi, hello, Richard. Hello.
Hello, it's Christine, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, hello,
Hi,
Christine.
hello.
I'm Sally. I
Hello,
just,
Sally.
you're a lovely boy here, and I knew
Yeah.
that because you said your mum's name was Christine.
Did I say that
Yeah,
earlier?
did,
Have you
did say
researched
it.
me on the way
No,
here?
Oh, please. I mean, what are you going to do with it?
Did I
Christine?
definitely say Christine on the radio?
I think what it is, Christine, I certainly didn't research him. What I want to say to you, I've got better things to do with my day. Saw a young boy here connected to Richard, and also August the 3rd, and it's really coming through you because of you. So we wanted to know if there was a young boy that passed in the family on your side or on your father's side.
No.
Right.
No, there isn't. I mean, the only...
So what is a Barnum statement? A Barnum statement is basically a sentence that on the surface seems very individual and personal, but ultimately could apply to anyone, making it generalised. An example of a Barnum statement would be, sometimes you can be loud, outgoing and a people person, but other times you can be quiet, shy and reserved. The use of Barnum statements are widely used across all types of clairvoyancy. They are especially prevalent in horoscopes. There have been many experiments outlining the power of Barnum statements, even given a number of different people the same horoscope and asking if it was an accurate description of them. All of them answered yes, it was accurate. The Barnum effect has been known since 1956, but was coined from P.T. Barnum, a famous showman who supposedly famously said, "A sucker is born every minute." So on to the strongest tool in the psychic's arsenal. Research. Isn't it amazing that these celebrity psychics can read other celebrities so well? The key is research. Of course you can tell someone all about their life, parents or even stories from childhood. If their life is literally plastered all over Wikipedia. For instance, I make videos about other people like KSI or Nico Milana. I have some level of knowledge about those people now because I put in the footwork and found out about the backstory, but I wouldn't exploit this due to my strength and integrity. Feel free to watch those videos here, by the way. So it's almost like hitting a goldmine for some of these so-called celebrity psychics. Like for instance, Tyler Henry, who exclusively just reads celebrities, but hey, I'm pretty sure this kind of high budget TV is probably usually fake to an extent. I mean, the guy works with people literally in the entertainment industry, so let's not look too far into that. I'm sure you can start to see by putting all of these methods together, you can quite easily learn to become a fully fledged psychic. If you just took a couple of acting lessons and gained confidence, that's all that matters, confidence. But we haven't spoke about the most powerful method of all yet, word of mouth. When you talk to someone that has visited a psychic, what's the first thing they say? Well, they usually say about that one amazing thing that they just couldn't have possibly have known. Like, they knew the exact day my dad died, or how did they know my nan's birthday, or anything in between. This is where word of mouth is so powerful. So now we know a reading is made up of hits and misses. Let's assume that every 20 misses there is one hit, right? If you're paying money to see a psychic, then you best believe you want that psychic to be right. You will make the words fit to what you think they mean. So how did you get the dates? I would wager that the conversation didn't go, "Your dad died on the 13th of November 2019. No, it would have been more like this. "Does November mean anything to you?" You answer, "Yes, it's the month my dad died." They reply, "Yes, that's what he's telling me. He's telling me teen between, he's saying 15, 14, 13. You reply, he died on the 13th, if that's it. Then boom, without you realising, they've just fished for the date and you walk away with a tale that cannot be explained. My advice, record the session and look back on it at a later date, and I believe you will see through a lot of the BS when you're not in the moment. The only way these people exist is because believers allow them to. Have you ever seen a reading with a skeptic? Well, I bet very few. If they cannot get hit, they'll generally put their failure to the subject having poor energy or not opening their minds. If you're a full believer, they have you by the wallet. So is it bad that this is all happening? I mean, I think some practices are worse than others. Like horoscopes and astrology in general is pretty harmless, but also pretty annoying. Just because I'm a Taurus doesn't mean I'm getting angry on a Tuesday because the moon is darker. Then on to fortune telling and tarot. Again, I'm not overly worried about this, but I think to the wrong person it can be interpreted way too literally and could potentially send them on the wrong track in life. Could you imagine if someone that suffers with depression was told that they won't live for a long time or will have an unhappy life? Wouldn't be a good outcome, would it? My biggest problem with the world of psychics is from the most popular mediums, or people that charge others for contacting dead loved ones. First of all, is it really ethical to be charging and profiting off the back of someone's grief? If you don't believe in all this, then basically what you're watching is someone on stage being paid a bucket load of money to pretend to talk to somebody else's dead loved one. It's actually quite sick. They even do silly little voices to get in character. It can actually be pretty abhorrent. To some people, this is their last hope in talking to their wife, husband, parent, or even child. And if it does work out to be completely false, well, where does that leave the psychic? Holding a bag of dirty, unethical money. Doesn't sound like the most honest of livings, does it? So let's wrap it up for today. I think it's ultimately a net negative for the world, but I'll leave your opinion up to you. But if you've enjoyed listening to my words, smash like and subscribe and let me know what you'd like to see next. Bye bye.